First, the Earth travels in a circuit around the Sun, which is divided into 4 arcs called spring, summer, autumn and winter. Second, the Sun, with his family, travels in a large circuit, which is divided into 1,500 arcs, the distance for each arc being about 3,000 years, or 1 cycle, that is, 1 Danha cycle. For there are cycles of other lengths, but because the Danha cycle is the primary Etherian administrative cycle for Earth and her heavens, it is often simply referred to as a cycle in this record and others in the libraries of heaven. And all the more, since man's progress is structured around such time duration. Now, during a Danha cycle, the Earth and her heavens travel through the Etherian regions of hundreds of Etherian worlds, which are inhabited by Jehovah's high-raised angels, whose chiefs are involved in the management of worlds. And, during the time of a Danha cycle, the Earth is therefore under the control and management of such angels of Jehovah for the resurrection of man of the Earth. At the time of man's creation, which is to say, at the time of the birth of the Ahin race, the Earth was traveling in the Ark of Wan, where thousands of Orion chiefs live, with billions of high-raised angels. The Holy Council of Orion chiefs, through the wisdom and voice of Jehovah, appointed one of their number, Sathantes, an archangel, to take charge of the Earth, and to people it with immortal beings, during its travel in Wan. The rank and title of Sathantes, thus raised up by Jehovah, creator of worlds, became, first God of the Earth and her heavens. And Sathantes had come with millions of angels, who had been previously raised up from other worlds, and he accomplished his work, and was known as God. Sathantes was, then, the first God of the Earth and her heavens, and his place was within the Ark of Wan. And during his cycle of 3,000 years, he raised up from the earth 1,500,000,000 brides and bridegrooms to Jehovah. After Sathantes came Ashong, sub-chief in the realms of Hui in the Heian Ark of Vehetavi. And during the cycle of Inakaran, also 3,000 years, Ashong raised up from the earth a harvest of 7,200,000,000 brides and bridegrooms. The third cycle was under the dominion of Hula, surveyor of Kakaensta in the Ark of Gimel, and his harvest was 3,700,000,000. The fourth cycle was under Kpiaban, chieftainess of Sulgaurin in the Ark of Yan, and her harvest was 4,800,000,000. The fifth cycle was under Pathetises, roadmaker in Chativya in the Ark of Yahamatak, and his harvest was 6,400,000,000. The sixth cycle was under Gomagak, god of Isig, in the Ark of Samgwathga, and his harvest was 7,900,000,000. The seventh cycle was under Gopins, god of Cain, in the Ark of Srivat, and his harvest was 9,300,000,000. The eighth cycle was under Hysis, goddess of Ruts, in the Ark of Hohamagalak, and her harvest was 9,400,000,000. The ninth cycle was under Seatsisius, inspector of roads in Kamatra, in the Ark of Jusian, and his harvest was 10,100,000,000. The 10th cycle was under Miss Salativi, chieftainess of the arches of Lizgobak, in the Ark of Nu, and her harvest was 10,800,000,000. And now the earth was full of people. All the continents and islands of the earth were inhabited by man, nor was there any wilderness left, where man did not dwell. But the generation of man had fallen from 33 years down to 12 years. And man and woman were at maturity at 7 years old, and not many lived above 30 years, but they were prolific, many of the mothers bringing forth 40 sons and daughters, and from 2 to 4 babies at a birth. And man dwelt in peace. The earth was tilled, and it brought forth abundantly everything that was good for man to eat, and to clothe himself with. In those days, there were great cities of hundreds of thousands of inhabitants, and thousands of such cities in all the 5 great divisions of the earth. And man built ships and sailed over the ocean in all directions, around the whole world. By the angels of the Lord, he was taught and guided in all things. And man had books, both written and printed, and in schools, the young were taught knowledge regarding the sun, moon, stars, and all things that are upon the earth, and in its waters. This was, therefore, called the first period of civilization on the earth. Now, for the most part, all the people, on earth on average, had become Ihans, small, white and yellow, though red, black, brown, and other colors of Ihans did exist. Moreover, with regard to the population becoming mostly Ihans, the Ihans prevailed more often than their ethnic counterparts because, aside from the other races commingling with the Druks more, these races also faced a higher likelihood of warfare, disease, and famine. Nevertheless, there were ground people, with long arms, who were large, but they dwelt by themselves, and their food was of all types of flesh, fish and creeping things. The ground people were brown and black, and they lived to be 200, and even 400 years old. Jehovah said, "In the early days I raised up Ihuans, the offspring of Ihans and Druks, and I gave them certain commandments, among which was, not to cohabit with the Druks lest they go down in darkness. But they did not obey my words, and lo and behold, they are lost from the face of the earth. Because the Ihans have become a spiritual people, and have prospered in peace and spirit, behold, they have degenerated in the corporeal body. They yield abundant harvests for my Etherian realms, but they are like untimely births. Now I, Jehovah, will bring the earth into Aegean fields, and forests for a long season, for I shall again reproduce the Ihuans, and the time of a generation shall be 33 years. For my harvest shall be of fruit that is mature and full of ripeness." And Jehovah brought the earth into new regions in the Etherian worlds, and covered it over with Agi, east and west and north and south. And it came to pass, that many of the Ihans lost the generative desire, and, so, did not bring forth many heirs. But the brown people burned with desires, and they laid hold of the Ihan women, when they went into the fields, and forced them, and thus brought forth again the Ihuan race, the copper-colored, strong, bright, and quick. Accordingly the 11th cycle, which was under Gabath, god of Tarangathaga, in the Ark of Sul, brought forth a harvest of 6,700,000,000. The 12th cycle was under Phaeus, goddess of Luga, in the Ark of Sion, and her harvest was 2,600,000,000. The 13th cycle was under Xenothes, keeper of the cross, in the Ark of Aleganiah, and his harvest was 1,200,000,000. The 14th cycle was under Totsantaga, road maker in Hapanogos, in the Ark of Menechu, and his harvest was only 600,000,000. The 15th cycle was under Nemeas, god of Thoskathamachus, in the Ark of Saga, and his harvest was only 40,000,000. The 16th cycle was under Neph, god of Sagans, in the Ark of Arbruk, but he failed to bring forth any harvest.